I stood in the parking lot shadows, the air thick with hot rubber and oil. The slap stung, vision flashing white behind the van door. Outside, the warehouse camera's red light blinked. My father watched the footage. He watched it for a long, silent moment. Then he hit delete. I didn't cry that night. I opened my laptop. My name is Riley Armitage. I am 29 years old. The fluorescent buzz at North Star Transit Group is the sound of my life buffering. As an inventory analyst, I track the movement of things that aren't mine, logging serial numbers under lights that strip all color from the world. It was late, past 8, and the fog was pressing against the warehouse windows. My shift was done, a 10-hour shift that felt like a year. But the day wasn't. I had one last stop. A stop I always dreaded. I was just returning keys. That was the official reason. A set of high-security cabinet keys for a demonstration unit. My father's company, Redwood Event Supply. Was the client? I always called it the client. It was cleaner that way. Redwood's parking lot felt different from North Star's sterile grid. North Star smelled of cardboard and static. Redwood smelled of diesel fumes, damp wood, and the metallic tang of welding from the repair shop. The sodium lamps threw a sickly, jaundiced light over the rows of trucks and vans, making the shadows deep and territorial. I parked my hatchback near the side entrance, far from the executive spots, the small metal keys caught in my palm. I didn't even make it to the door. "Riley?" The voice cut through the sound of a distant truck's air brakes. Delia Knox, my stepmother. She emerged from the shadow of the main loading bay, not dressed for the warehouse, but as if she were hosting a donor gala. Her trench coat was immaculate, her blonde hair perfect. "Delia, I was just dropping these off for Graham." I held the keys up, a pathetic white flag. "Oh, nonsense. Honey, don't be such a stranger." She glided toward me, her smile as bright and hard as new paint. She placed a hand on my forearm, her nails, perfectly manicured, dug just slightly through the thin fabric of my work jacket. "It's so rare we get a moment. Let's have a proper family talk. Just us." My stomach seized. A family talk with Delia was an execution. "It's late. Delia, I just pulled a double. I'm tired." "It will only take a minute." Her grip tightened, urging me away from the well-lit path, away from the employee entrance. She steered me toward the back of the lot, toward the service alley where the big refrigeration trucks parked. She stopped us in the narrow, dark canyon between the cold storage building and the high-sided bulk of a white refrigerated van. The van's cooling unit was idling, a heavy mechanical thrum that vibrated the ground and coated the air with the smell of diesel. It was 10 degrees colder back here. She released my arm and the performance evaporated. Her smile vanished. She crossed her arms, her posture shifting from hostess to warden. "I don't know what you think you're doing, Riley, but it stops tonight." "Doing? I'm returning keys. That's it." Her laugh was brittle, like glass breaking. This little routine, stopping by, just dropping things off, calling your father for inventory advice for your real job. You work at North Star. Stay there." "He's my father. Delia, this was my mother's company before it was anything else." The words were stupid, a child's defense, and I regretted them the moment they left my mouth. Delia's eyes went flat and cold. "Your mother is gone. This is my family now. This is my company, and I am tired of you. This sad little ghost, haunting the edges. Don't bamle chakon vakumtine nua. Stop clinging to your father and this company." The words were familiar. The same rhythmic accusation. I was a parasite, a relic. "I'm not clinging," I whispered, hating the weakness in my voice. "I'm just—" "Just what?" She advanced. One step, forcing me to flatten myself against the frigid, corrugated metal of the van. The vibration of the refrigeration unit shuddered through my back. "Pathetic. You're 29 years old, still sniffing around, hoping for a handout, still trying to take what isn't yours." "That isn't true." "Shut up." She shoved my shoulder, not hard, but enough to make me stumble. "You think he doesn't see it? You think I don't? Trying to poison him against me? Against my family? She grabbed the front of my jacket, yanking me forward off the van. Her face inches from mine. The heavy, expensive scent of her perfume filled my lungs, thick and suffocating. And then she slapped me. It was not a movie slap. It was a crack of sound, a solid, brutal impact of bone and flesh. Her full weight was behind it. My head snapped back and slammed against the metal side of the van, the sound of the slap, and the heavy metallic thud of my skull hitting the wall seemed to echo in the narrow space. Vision exploded, white light, then black spots. The world tilted. The air was gone from my lungs. My cheek was instantly numb. Then it began to burn. A deep, radiating fire. I tasted salt and copper. I was dizzy, shocked, but I didn't fall. I braced myself against the van wall, my legs trembling. I blinked, trying to clear the static from my vision, and looked up. Not at her. Past her. I looked up at the corner of the main warehouse building, where it met the overhang of the service bay. A small, pulsing red light. The high-angle security camera. Aimed directly at this spot, it saw everything, and just a few yards to the left, under the eaves, the dark, mirrored bubble of the secondary dome camera, the one that covered the parking lot entrance. We were in frame. We were absolutely in frame. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just stared at that red light, the signal of my salvation. "Hey, everything okay back there?" A beam of a flashlight cut through the darkness, landing on us, a security guard, a new guy, someone I didn't recognize, doing his perimeter walk. Delia's transformation was instantaneous and terrifying. The rage vanished. She dropped her hands, her entire body softened, her face melting into a mask of maternal concern. She turned to me, reaching out, as if to brush hair from my face. "Oh, Riley, honey, watch your step." Her voice was liquid gold. She turned to the guard, beaming. "She just tripped, silly girl, tired after her long day." She grabbed my arm, her grip now proprietary, pulling me away from the van, out of the shadows, out of the camera's precise line of sight. "You're okay, sweetie. Just a little stumble. Let's get you on your way." I didn't resist. I was a doll in her hands. I let her guide me back toward the main lot, my cheek screaming, the blood on my lip feeling thick and foreign. The guard nodded, satisfied by the performance, and moved on. Delia patted my shoulder. "Drive safe, honey." She turned and walked back into the main building, leaving me alone under the yellow lights. I didn't go home. I drove to a 24-hour drugstore. I bought a chemical ice pack, sat in my car under the sterile white lights of the pharmacy parking lot, and pressed the freezing pack to my swelling face. I watched the clock on my dashboard click past 10 p.m., then 10:30. Just before 11, my phone buzzed. My father, Graham. The text wasn't a question. It was a summons. "Need you to come to the office. Security issue." My heart did a painful, hopeful lurch. He knows. He saw the alert. He'll handle this. He had to. He was my father. The security office was in the basement of the main building, a cold, windowless room that smelled of stale air and the ozone hum of the server racks. Graham was sitting at the main console, his face illuminated by the pale blue light of the 6 monitors. He didn't look up when I walked in. The ice pack in my hand was leaking, dripping onto the industrial carpet. "Dad?" "Sit down, Riley." His voice was hollow. I sat in the hard plastic guest chair. My cheek throbbed in time with the server fans. "There was an incident," he said, his eyes fixed on the main screen. "A motion alert in the service bay. I needed to see it clearly." He clicked the mouse. The screen flickered, and camera 3 filled the monitor. The high-angle, black and white feed. We watched it together, in total silence. There was Delia, pulling me into the shadows. There was the argument. Just motion, no sound. There were the shoves, and then the undeniable, violent crack of her hand against my face, my head slamming into the van. It was stark. It was undeniable. Graham stopped the footage. He rewound it. He played it again. My stomach churned. Then he switched feeds. Camera 4. The dome camera from the eaves. This one had audio. It was meant to catch truck licenses and arguments at the bay door. He hit play. The air was filled with the rumble of the van's cooler and the howl of the wind. We heard Delia's voice, tinny and sharp. Clinging to this company. And then, crack. The sound of the slap was sharp, followed a millisecond later by the heavy, sickening thud of metal. My father's hand, resting on the trackpad, went completely still. He stared at the screen, at the frozen image of my head hitting the van. He watched it for a long, quiet moment. I could see the muscles in his jaw working. I watched his profile. I watched the man who taught me to ride a bike, the man who held me when my mother died. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the problem on the monitor. His index finger, hovering over the trackpad, finally moved. He clicked. A small dialog box appeared. Are you sure you want to permanently delete this file? The server fans seemed to get louder. He hesitated. For 1, 2, 3 seconds, a lifetime. His finger moved, slow and deliberate, and settled on the trackpad. He hit delete. The file vanished. The screen blinked and returned to the live feed of the empty, rain-swept service bay. He finally turned to look at me. His eyes were dark, haunted, and filled with an exhaustion so profound it looked like defeat. Don't break this family, he said. His voice was a whisper. It was not a command. It was a plea. The ice pack slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a wet smack. The burning on my face was gone, replaced by an Arctic cold that started in my stomach and spread outward. He didn't mean our family, not me and him. He meant his family, the new one, the one he had to protect. He had watched his wife assault his daughter, and he had chosen his wife. He had made me the accomplice to my own erasure. I stood up. The plastic chair scraped loudly on the tile floor. Riley, he started, his voice cracking, reaching for a fatherly tone that was now a grotesque mockery. I held up my hand. I couldn't speak. If I opened my mouth, a scream would come out that would tear the room apart, and he didn't deserve the satisfaction of my breakdown. I turned and walked out of the security office. I walked up the basement stairs, through the silent warehouse, and out into the cold night air. The rain was harder now, and it felt good on my burning face. I got in my car. I didn't cry. He chose Delia. I chose silence. But my silence would only last for 72 hours, and in that time, I would not be idle. The apartment door clicked shut, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. I didn't turn on the lights. I stood in the entryway, the darkness of my own home feeling different from the shadows in the lot. The rain from the walk to the car was dripping from my hair onto the hardwood floor. I was not cold. I was vibrating. My father's whisper hung in the air, thick as the oil and rubber scent I couldn't wash out of my nose. Don't break this family. My hand went to my cheek. The numbness had faded, replaced by a deep, pulsing ache that radiated up to my temple and down into my jaw. I walked into the bathroom and flicked the switch. The light was unforgiving. The left side of my face was already swelling, the skin tight and shiny. A distinct, ugly, purplish-red mark was blooming just below the cheekbone. It wasn't just my face. I pulled down the collar of my work jacket, where Delia had grabbed me, shoving me against the van before the slap. The imprint of her fingers was already forming, 4 distinct points of pressure, blooming into dark contusions on my shoulder. I looked at my reflection, at the hurt, at the evidence. My analyst brain took over, the part of me that North Star Transit paid to find discrepancies in shipping manifests, the part that lived for data integrity, pushed the crying, betrayed daughter aside. I picked up my phone. I went to the camera app. I didn't take selfies. I documented. 1 shot, full face, neutral expression. 1 shot, left profile. 1 shot, close up on the cheek. I pulled the jacket collar wide, angling my shoulder toward the mirror, and took 3 more shots of the finger marks. I turned on the timestamp feature. I took another full set. I went to my laptop and plugged the phone in. I didn't upload them to a cloud service my father could ever guess the password to. I created a new encrypted volume on a dedicated external drive. I named the volume, gave it a 256-bit password that was a random string of nonsense, and moved the files. I set the file properties to read-only. I recorded the date and the exact time of the transfer in a separate text file, which I also encrypted. The daughter was gone. The analyst was working. My father had made a critical mistake. He had deleted the file from the local server. He was the CEO. He had admin rights. He saw a problem and he clicked delete. But I knew that system. I had practically grown up in that office. I knew its weaknesses, and I knew its redundancies. Graham was old school. He thought if he deleted it from the server console, it was gone. He was wrong. I opened my browser. I wasn't just an inventory analyst. I specialized in logistics compliance. I knew the fine print. I pulled up Redwood's public-facing insurance carrier, Mid-Continent Mutual Logistics. Redwood wasn't just a party supply company. It was a logistics fleet. They ran heavy trucks. Their insurance premiums were massive. And I knew exactly what they had done to lower those premiums. About 3 years ago, Mid-Continent offered a significant rate reduction, nearly 20%, for clients who implemented redundant, off-site, immutable storage for all security feeds. It was a loss prevention measure. If a truck was hijacked or a driver got in a fight at a loading dock, the insurance company didn't want to hear that the tape was mysteriously corrupted. Redwood, under Delia's relentless budget cutting, had taken the deal. The main camera, the high-angle one, was just a standard IP camera writing to the local server my father had wiped. But the dome camera under the eaves, Camera 4, the one that captured the audio, was part of the insurance compliance package. It didn't just record locally. It mirrored a continuous, encrypted feed directly to a secure server hosted by Mid-Continent Mutual. My father had deleted the local copy. He hadn't, and couldn't, touch the mirror. I checked the time. It was past midnight. The first of my 72 hours was ticking away. I drafted the email. I sent it from my official North Star address, not my personal one. It lent a sterile, corporate weight to the request. 2. Claims Department, Mid-Continent, Mutual Logistics. Subject: Formal request for incident footage. Policyholder, Redwood Event Supply. To whom it may concern. I am writing to formally request preserved footage related to a physical assault incident. I, Riley Armitage, was the victim of this assault, which occurred on the insured property of your client, Redwood Event Supply, at approximately 9:45 p.m. this evening. The incident, involving myself and a senior executive of Redwood, was captured by the security camera located near the main service bay, specifically the dome camera listed as Camera 4 on their internal schematics. Pursuant to the data preservation clauses in your loss prevention agreements, which identify me as an injured party on the insured premises, I request immediate access to the immutable backup copy of this footage. Please treat this as a formal notice to preserve all data from that device from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. I hit send. Now, I worked on the local system. I still had old, low-level credentials to Redwood's maintenance portal. They were never revoked. Delia was meticulous about money, but sloppy about IT hygiene. I logged in. My access was limited, but I didn't need to see the files. I just needed the metadata. I downloaded the camera maintenance schedule. Camera 3, high angle, weekly check. Camera 4, dome audio, monthly check, verified by Mid-Continent vendor. I downloaded the security guard rotation. The guard who saw us was a new hire. Good, no entrenched loyalty. I pulled the server logs from the security office. It was beautiful. Stark. 21:47:04. Motion alert. Camera 3, Camera 4. 22:58:12. User login. G. Armitage. Admin. Console. 22:59:01. File access. KM4 2147. 4. MP4 225940. Command, delete. KM4 214704. MP4 225942. Command, delete. Cam 3 2147 Husdarand. MP4 230105. User log out. G. Armitage. He didn't just delete the audio file. He deleted both. He was thorough, and he had just created a perfect time-stamped record of the cover-up, the spoliation of evidence. My phone buzzed. A reply from Mid-Continent. It was an automated ticket number. A human would follow up within 1 business day. I couldn't wait. I needed to confirm the backup protocol. I messaged Jaden. He was the night shift IT analyst at Redwood, a contractor I'd recommended for the job years ago. He was a system purist. He hated sloppy architecture. My text. Hey Jaden, random question for you. Working on a compliance report for North Star. Trying to remember how Redwood set up that Mid-Continent mirror. Does that thing sync in real time or on a delay? His reply came 2 minutes later. Hey Riley, total mess. As usual. It's not real time. It's a cron job. The bandwidth here is too garbage for a live stream. The system packages and uploads the feed in 15-minute blocks, every hour, on the hour. Then a full sync runs at 21:03 every night. 9:03 p.m. My heart stopped. The assault happened around 9:45 p.m. Graham didn't delete the file until almost 11 p.m. The 9:03 sync would have missed it. It would be in the next batch. I needed to know the exact schedule. My text. Ah, that makes sense. So the 9:45 p.m. incident would upload at 10 p.m.? Jaden. No, that's the hourly block. The final sync is the one that matters. The 21:03 job is the full system mirror. Pulls everything from the last 24 hours that hasn't been checksum verified. It's the belt and suspenders. Jaden. Why? Something happen? My text. No, just compliance nightmares. Thanks. You're a lifesaver. Owe you a coffee. The assault happened at 9:45. The final, full mirror of the day ran at 9:03. This meant the footage. I checked again, 21:03. No, I misread his text. A full sync runs at 21:03. That meant 9:03 p.m. That would have been before the assault. I reread his message. Packages and uploads the feed in 15-minute blocks, every hour, on the hour. That was it. The incident at 9:45 would have been packaged by the 10 p.m. job. By the time Graham sat down at that console at 10:58, the file was already gone. It was already safe on the insurance server. His entire act of destruction was pointless. It was just a performance of loyalty for an audience of one. The only thing he had successfully deleted was our relationship. The next morning, I woke up stiff and sore. The bruise was a masterpiece of purple and yellow. I had an email from Mid-Continent Mutual. Ms. Armitage, your ticket has been escalated. As you are an involved party in a security incident on an insured property, your request for data has been approved under Clause 4.b, Incident Reporting. Please find a secure download link below. This link will expire in 24 hours. My hands were shaking. I clicked the link. The file downloaded. Cam4 21.47/04. Mirror MP4. I didn't watch it. Not at first. I opened my audio editing software. I dragged the file in and stripped the audio track. I just wanted the waveform. There it was. The low rumbling hum of the refrigeration unit. The sound of the wind. Then, the sharp, clean spike of Delia's voice. I isolated it. Bám lấy cha con và công ty này nữa. Followed by my own, weaker murmur. Then her voice, loud, clipping the audio. Shut up! And then, the explosion. A massive, sharp-edged peak that filled the entire spectrum. The crack of the slap. It was immediately followed by a heavy, bass-heavy thud. The sound of my skull hitting the corrugated metal of the van. I cross-referenced the file's internal timestamp with the server log. File timestamp, 21:47:18. The slap. Server log, 21:47:04. Motion alert. My phone, 21:45 atwag. Parking the car. It was a perfect, unbroken chain of data. My next step was physical. I called my family doctor's office. I need to make an appointment. I was assaulted last night and I need my injuries documented. The receptionist's voice changed, became gentle. Of course. Can you come in right now? I sat in the exam room. Dr. Miles, who had known me since I was a child, was quiet. His face professional, but his eyes sad as he examined my cheek and shoulder. Riley, this is significant soft tissue trauma, he said, gently probing the swelling. Consistent with a high-velocity impact, and these marks on your shoulder, this is a grip, a powerful one. He documented everything. He took his own clinical photographs. Do you want me to call the police? He asked. No, I said, my voice firm. Not yet. I need this purely for documentation. This is an adult matter, not a child services case, just the medical facts. He nodded, understanding the unspoken. I'll have the report ready for you. Blunt force trauma, multiple contusions. I left his office with a prescription for an anti-inflammatory I wouldn't fill and a medical report that was worth more than gold. I went home. I had the video. I had the server logs showing the deletion. I had the medical report. I had the IT confirmation of the backup schedule. Now, I built the timeline. I opened a spreadsheet. 2140. Riley Armitage. Keycard access. Parking gate. 2142. Delia Knox. Keycard access. Main entrance. 2145. Event. Riley Parks vehicle. 2146. Event. Delia intercepts Riley. 2147. Event. Assault. Audio-video match. 2148. Event. Security guard. Name. T. Fielding. Rounds Corner. 2149. Event. Delia and Riley separate. 2150. Riley Armitage. Keycard access. Parking gate. Exit. 2200. Cron. Job. Hourly block upload to mid-continent. 2258. User login. G. Armitage. 2259. Event. Spoliation of evidence. 2301. User logout. G. Armitage. The last step of the day. I opened my email. I drafted a new message, this time to my father's official Redwood email address and to the General Counsel of Redwood Event Supply. I attached nothing. Subject. Notice to preserve evidence. Incident dated date. This email serves as a formal legal notice to Redwood Event Supply to preserve all records related to an incident of workplace violence and assault that occurred on your premises on date at approximately 2147. This includes, but is not limited to, all security camera footage, all angles, all formats, server logs, access logs, keycard data, employee schedules, maintenance reports, and all internal and external communications regarding this incident from 2101 onward. Any failure to preserve this data, including any further deletion, alteration, or overwriting of existing files, will be treated as willful and intentional spoliation of evidence. Govern yourselves accordingly. I clicked the button for a read receipt. I hit send. I took all my files, the video, the audio waveform, the doctor's report, the server logs, the timeline, and I placed them in the encrypted master folder on my external drive. I right-clicked. I hit rename. I typed a Raven Vans. Every piece was in place. The trap was set. Now, I just had to wait for them to walk into it. I went to work the next day. I sat at my desk at North Star Transit. The hum of the servers a familiar comfort. The bruise on my cheek was a toxic, greenish purple. I'd covered it with a thick layer of concealer, but it did nothing for the swelling. It looked like I'd had bad dental surgery. Rough night? My cubicle mate asked, not unkindly. Something like that, I said, booting up my system. I couldn't focus on North Star's manifests. My mind was on Redwood. The adrenaline from the first 24 hours, the documentation, the legal notices, had faded, replaced by a cold, heavy question. Why? The slap was personal. The deletion was business. My father wasn't a monster. He was a pragmatist. He was a weak man, terrified of disruption, but he wasn't inherently cruel. Deleting the footage was an act of profound cowardice, but it was also a calculated business decision. He was protecting the company. Protecting it from what? A messy family scandal? It felt bigger than that. Delia's rage wasn't just about me clinging to my father. It was too volatile, too specific. It was the rage of someone whose plans were being threatened. So, what were her plans? I still had my limited access to the Redwood intranet. It was meant for me to check on old project specs. I started to dig. It didn't take long to find the prize. It was the talk of the company's internal message board, the High Plains Expo. It was the biggest event to come to the state in a decade, a 6-month-long affair that would draw in millions, and it needed a single, exclusive logistics and supply partner. The contract was a golden ticket. It was worth 7 figures, easy, and it would guarantee Redwood's dominance for the next 5 years. Redwood Event Supply was the front-runner for the bid. The decision was in 2 weeks. A public scandal, a CEO's wife assaulting his daughter in the company parking lot, would be catastrophic. The city, which was a partner in the expo, would drop Redwood in a heartbeat. So, my father deleted the tape. He chose the contract over his daughter. That was the simple, brutal math. But my analyst brain couldn't let it go. It still felt incomplete. I looked at the internal memos about the bid. Delia was running point on the presentation. She was also restructuring the warehouse operations to meet the demands of the expo. I pulled up the new org chart. There, under warehouse manager, was a name that made my stomach turn. Derek Knox. Delia's nephew. Derek was, to put it politely, an idiot. He was a 24-year-old whose primary skills involved failing out of community college and totaling his sports cars. He had no logistics experience. He was a walking liability. And Delia was trying to put him in charge of the single most important part of the new contract. She was pushing for him, hard, to keep the inner circle tight. This was the motive. Delia was making a power play. She was leveraging the expo bid to install her own incompetent family, pushing out the last remnants of my mother's legacy. The assault was a message. Stay away from my new kingdom. I sat back, the puzzle pieces clicking into place. Graham was desperate to win the bid. Delia was desperate to consolidate power. I was the variable they couldn't control. But the fraud analyst in me, the part that North Star paid to find patterns in the static, sensed something else. This was sloppy. Nepotism was ugly. But it wasn't usually a motive for assault. Not unless Derek was a screen for something else. If Delia was willing to fake a family, what else was she willing to fake? I shifted my focus from the HR files to the financial portal. My access was read-only and low-level, but I could see vendor lists. I started with the most obvious place: safety. A big part of the High Plains Expo bid was worker safety. The city had strict compliance requirements. Redwood would have to prove it was outfitting its crews with new, high-standard gear. I pulled the recent purchase orders, standard uniforms, steel-toed boots, hard hats, and then one vendor that stuck out, D&K Outfitters. I didn't recognize the name. The invoices were huge, tens of thousands of dollars over the last 6 months, all for specialized safety harnesses and high-visibility flame-retardant vests. Odd, Redwood's main business was party tents and AV equipment, not high-altitude construction. I cross-referenced the vendor. D&K Outfitters was a new corporation, registered just 8 months ago. Its address was a post office box in a neighboring town. My heart started to beat a little faster. This was the smell of a phantom. I was at North Star, a multi-million-dollar logistics hub. I opened my own company's manifest system. We handled safety gear every day. I knew the suppliers, the SKUs, the serial number formats. I went back to the Redwood portal. I found the receiving logs for the D&K shipments. They didn't exist. There were invoices, there were payment records, signed off by Delia. But there were no corresponding shipping manifests, no bills of lading, no receiving signatures from the warehouse floor. The gear was never delivered. My hands were cold. I did a serial number search on the few items that were logged as received. I pulled a serial number from a D&K invoice for a safety harness, DK9045. I plugged it into our North Star system. It popped up, serial DK9045. Harness, Fall Pro, Ship to, Allied Construction. Date, 1 year ago. I tried another one, DK9071. Ship to, City Water and Power. Date, 9 months ago. Delia wasn't just faking the vendor, she was pulling old, recycled serial numbers from public shipping databases, creating ghost invoices, and signing the checks. She was billing Redwood for tens of thousands of dollars in safety equipment that never, ever existed. Where was the money coming from? I dug deeper. Redwood had recently been the proud recipient of a local business safety improvement grant. It was city and state money, a fund designed to help local companies get up to code and protect their workers. A program with a very strict anti-fraud clause. Delia was using public grant money, designated for worker safety, to pay her own phantom company. Now I knew where the money was coming from. I needed to know where it was going. I followed the payment trail. The checks to D&K Outfitters were cashed. Then the funds were transferred. It was a simple, almost insulting, shell game. But I didn't have access to her bank records. I did, however, have access to the company expense reports. I pulled Delia's file. It was a masterpiece of arrogance. She didn't even bother to hide it well. She had a corporate Amex, and she was billing Redwood for internal consulting fees. Massive, round number charges, $5,000, $10,000, all approved by her. The dates of the consulting matched the payment dates to D&K, almost to the day. She was stealing from the company. She was stealing from the city. I went to my encrypted email archive, the one I'd kept from my time at Redwood. I searched for Delia. I found an email from her, sent 3 months ago to my father, when he'd apparently questioned one of her new hires. His original email was gone, but her reply was all I needed. Subject: roster questions. Graham, I've handled it. Stop micromanaging the warehouse. You just secure the bid. The rest is family business. The rest is family business. Derek, D&K Outfitters. It was all one dirty package. One last thing. I went back to the payroll. I looked at the night shift. The one Jaden worked. My name, Riley Armitage, was still on some of the old distribution lists. I also saw Delia's nephew, Derek, listed as a night shift trainee. But there were 3 other names, new hires, all added in the last 2 months. I didn't recognize any of them. I pulled the keycard access logs I had saved in the Raven Van folder, the logs that showed everyone who entered and exited the building. I searched for the new hires. Search: J. Smith. Result: no entry found. Search: M. Davis. Result: no entry found. Search: R. Chen. Result: no entry found. 3 ghost employees, 3 paychecks being issued every 2 weeks, signed off by Delia's department, 3 accounts, all opened at the same suburban bank branch where Delia kept her personal accounts. My father's whisper came back to me. Don't break this family. I finally understood. Delia was running a multi-layered fraud operation. She was faking inventory, faking vendors, and faking employees. She was funneling grant money and company cash into her own pocket. The High Plains Expo bid was both her cover and her biggest score. If she landed it, the budget would be so massive. Her small-time fraud would be a rounding error. Lost in the noise, she could install Derek as the manager, and he would be the perfect idiot puppet, signing off on anything she put in front of him. And I, Riley Armitage, the overeducated analyst daughter, was the single greatest threat to her entire plan. I wasn't just a sad little ghost. I was the one person who could walk into that warehouse, take one look at the books, and know exactly what she was doing. The slap wasn't a loss of temper. It was a warning, a desperate, violent attempt to scare me away from the company, to make me so angry at the family drama that I would never, ever look at the numbers. She had overplayed her hand. She thought the fight was about family. She had no idea that she'd just started a war with an auditor. The Raven Van folder, the one with the video of the assault, was no longer just a file about me getting justice. It was the key. It was the leverage. It was the crowbar I was going to use to rip the locked door of her financial crimes right off its hinges. The slap was the surface, the fraud was the motive, and the video was the proof that would burn her entire operation to the ground. The concealer was a failure. It caked over the bruise, creating a grotesque, peach-colored mask over the deep purple. It was a statement. When I went to work at North Star, I could feel the stares, the quick, averted glances. I was no longer just Riley, the quiet analyst. I was a question mark. It was time to stop being the victim and start being the predator. I waited until the end of the day, 3 days after the assault. My notice to preserve had been met with a deafening, corporate silence from Redwood's counsel. My read receipt had pinged. They'd seen it. They were ignoring it, hoping the daughter would back down. They didn't know the analyst. I picked up my phone and sent a text, not to my father, but to Delia. I sent it from my personal number. Delia, I'm sorry for the tension the other night. I'm not going to make this a problem. I just want things to be quiet and peaceful. I won't make a big deal out of it, as long as things are calm. I was betting on her arrogance. She wouldn't see a trap. She would see a dog, tail between its legs. The reply was almost instant. Oh, Riley. Sweetie, I knew you'd see sense. That's all I've ever wanted. Let's clear the air. Lunch tomorrow? Just us girls? The Gilded Pear? 1 o'clock? The Gilded Pear. A dark, absurdly expensive restaurant downtown. All plush velvet booths and hushed conspiratorial tones. It was where people went to do deals they didn't want photographed. It was perfect. I'd like that. I texted back. See you then. I spent that night preparing. I checked the state's recording laws. A one-party consent state. I was the one party. It was perfectly legal. I went to an electronics store and bought a high-fidelity digital audio recorder, the size of a slim pen. I tested it. The microphone was sensitive enough to pick up a whisper across a room, and its software could filter out background clatter. The next day, I arrived at the restaurant at 12:45. I requested a specific booth, in the far back corner, away from the kitchen and the bar. I slid the pen recorder into the seam of the velvet upholstery, between the cushion and the wall. I sat down, ordered a seltzer with lime, and waited. Delia arrived at 1:10. 10 minutes late, a power move. She swept into the booth, all apologies and expensive perfume, the scent that I now associated with violence. Riley, so sorry. The traffic was just a nightmare. You look tired, honey. Her eyes lingered for a second on my badly covered bruise. There was no remorse. There was a flicker of satisfaction. It's been a stressful few days, I said, my voice quiet, playing the part. Well, that's what we're here to fix. She signaled the waiter, ordering a $25 glass of Chardonnay without looking at the menu. We're family, and families, well, we have our squabbles, don't we? But we get through them. We close ranks. The waiter left. Delia leaned forward, her voice dropping, becoming intimate. The recorder in the cushion drank in every word. I know you were upset the other night, Riley, and I'll admit, things got heated. You caught me on a bad day. The stress with this expo bid is just enormous. I understand, I said. I shouldn't have been there. No, she said, patting my hand. Her skin was cold. It's fine. It's all forgotten. The important thing is, we're moving forward, all of us, as a united front. Your father, he needs this bid. Riley, it's everything. I know. I won't do anything to jeopardize that. I looked down, the picture of submission. I was worried about the camera, the one in the lot, the security guard. Delia laughed, a short, sharp, dismissive sound. She took a sip of her wine. Oh, sweetie, don't you worry your pretty little head about that. That camera's long gone. My blood went cold, but my expression remained neutral. Gone? But I thought they were for insurance. She waved her hand, dismissing the entire concept of insurance. It was malfunctioning. Your father had them wipe the whole drive. Something about corrupted files. It's all technical nonsense. It's gone. It's a non-issue. Just like our little misunderstanding. It's over. It's gone. She believed it. My father had told her he'd handled it, and she'd believed him. She had no idea the mirror file even existed. She was confessing to her own cover-up, confident that the evidence was destroyed. That's a relief, I said, letting out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I want to be helpful. I've been at North Star so long. I see how other companies handle their books. I was fishing, just one little cast. And I was looking at the Redwood vendors, just out of curiosity, and that D&K Outfitters, they seemed to be... The change was electric. The velvet curtain of her performance was ripped away. Her eyes narrowed to slits. The smile vanished. What? Her voice was a razor. Oh, they seem to be getting a lot of orders. And Riley, she put her wineglass down, the sound a sharp click on the table. A word of advice. Stay out of my family's books. Her mask of concern was gone, replaced by the same cold fury I'd seen by the van. This is not North Star, she hissed, leaning across the table. You don't work for us. You are a guest, and you would do well to remember what happens to guests who overstay their welcome. Are we clear? Yes, I whispered. Crystal? Good. She sat back, the smile snapping back into place, though it didn't reach her eyes. Now, let's order. I'm starving. The rest of the lunch was a blur of meaningless chatter. I retrieved the recorder on my way out, my hand closing around the warm metal. When I got to my car, my phone had a new message. It was from Graham, my first communication from him since the security room. I know you're better than this. Riley, I know you're a good person. Don't let this anger make you do something you'll regret. Don't ruin this for everyone. One part plea, one part threat, 100% pathetic. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried about the bid. He was worried about Delia. I didn't reply. Instead, I called the lawyer I had consulted 2 days ago. She confirmed it, I said. I have her on tape admitting to the assault. She called it a squabble, and admitting she believes my father destroyed the evidence. Good, my lawyer's voice was calm. Now we escalate. The next morning, Redwood's general counsel didn't get a notice to preserve from me. They got a formal cease and desist and spoliation warning from a managing partner at a downtown law firm. It informed them that we were aware of the willful destruction of evidence by Graham Armitage and that we had a forensically sound copy of the incident in question. The response from Delia was almost comical in its predictability. 2 hours later, I got a call from Redwood's head of security. Ms. Armitage, I'm afraid I have to inform you that a formal complaint has been filed against you by Ms. Knox. A complaint? For what? He sounded embarrassed. Workplace harassment, and creating a disruptive and hostile environment. She's filed for a no-contact order, meaning you are, barred from the premises pending an investigation. I don't even work there, I said, dumbfounded. Yes, ma'am. I know. It's irregular. I'm just the messenger. She was trying to build a paper trail, to paint me as the aggressor, the unstable daughter harassing her. It was a classic Darvo tactic. Deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. It was a desperate, sloppy move, and it told me I had her rattled. That afternoon, a message popped up on my encrypted chat client. It was from Jaden, the night shift IT tech. Jaden, you're making some big waves. The whole server room is on lockdown. They're changing admin passwords, but they're amateurs. Jaden, you didn't ask for this, but I hate sloppy work, and I really hate bullies. A file transfer notification popped up. Midcon checksum log, text. Jaden, that's the full checksum log from the Mid-Continent Mirror. It's the digital fingerprint of the file they received at 10 p.m. that night. It proves their copy matches the hash of the one you have, and proves it was uploaded before Graham ever sat down at that console. Jaden. They can't claim corrupted file. They can't claim it was a technical glitch. That file is pristine, and this log is the birth certificate. Me. Jaden, you don't know what this means. Thank you. Jaden. Just fix it. Good luck, Riley. He was offline. I now had the medical report, the original video, the server log of the deletion, a voice recording of Delia's partial confession, and the checksum log proving the mirror file was authentic and untouched. I spent the rest of the night working. I wasn't just an analyst. I wasn't just a victim. I was a storyteller. I opened a web design program. I built a simple, clean, one-page website. I didn't publish it. I just built it, saving it locally. At the top, I put a title, The Raven Van Report, a timeline of events. I laid it all out. Date, 2140. Riley Armitage enters Redwood Lot. Date, 2147. Delia Knox physically assaults Riley Armitage. C-file, Cam 4 mirror, MP4. Date, 2147. Audio confirms threat. C-file, Delia, audio, WAV. Date, 2148. Security guard. T. Fielding observes. Delia Knox lies. Claims stumble. Date, 2200. Insurance mirror file uploaded. C file, midcon, checksum log. Text T. Date, 2259. CEO Graham Armitage willfully destroys local evidence. C file, server log, TXT. Date, next day. Medical report confirms blunt force trauma. C file, medical report, PDF. Date, 2 days later. Delia Knox admits to incident. C file, lunch recording, MP3. I embedded thumbnails for each piece of evidence. It was a cold, factual, undeniable narrative of a crime and its cover-up. It was a time bomb. I saved the entire website to a private folder. I didn't send it to anyone. I didn't need to. Not yet. The High Plains Expo bid hearing was in 7 days. Delia and Graham were scrambling, trying to plug leaks, unaware that the ship was already sunk. They were fighting me. I was waiting for the hearing. I wasn't playing their game. I was playing my own. And I was letting them make the next move. Delia's hostile environment complaint was a gift. It was a formal, documented admission that an interaction had occurred, and it was a clumsy attempt to control the narrative. My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Hannah, laughed when I forwarded her the email. "This is excellent," she said over the phone. "She's panicked. She's created a paper trail. Now, we'll create a better one." Hannah immediately filed a countermotion, but not for a no-contact order. She filed for a formal, court-ordered workplace restraining order, seeking to bar Delia from approaching me at my place of work. North Star. "It's a jurisdictional shot across the bow," Hannah explained. "We're telling her that her attempt to file a complaint at Redwood, where she's queen, has no power in the real world. We're establishing you as the party seeking protection, not the one needing to be controlled. But this legal maneuvering was just the public-facing side. The real work was happening in the shadows. The problem with a company like Redwood, a family business, is that it's never just a family. It's a network of people who are watching, people who are overlooked, and people who are just waiting for a reason to talk." Delia and Graham had forgotten that I hadn't. My first call was to Marco. He was a senior driver, a teamster, and one of the last guys from my mother's era. He had known me since I was a kid sneaking into the break room to steal sodas. He was gruff, unflappable, and had zero tolerance for management. I met him at an all-night diner, far from the warehouse. He was off the clock, nursing a cup of black coffee. The fluorescent lights buzzed over his Redwood Logistics jacket, the old logo, not Delia's new and improved one. I didn't show him the video. I didn't tell him about the fraud. I just asked. "Marco, the other night, did you see me in the parking lot?" He took a long, slow sip. Saw you park. Saw her. He spat the word. Come out and pull you over toward the refrigeration bay. Looked like she was insistent. Did you see anything else? He shook his head. Had to get my manifest. By the time I came back out, you were gone. Figured it was just more family drama. Why? She give you a hard time? You could say that, I said, pulling the concealer away from my cheek with a makeup wipe. The bruise was in its full, Technicolor yellow and purple glory. Marco's eyes went from board to granite. He put the coffee cup down. The sound was a sharp clack in the quiet diner. She did that? It wasn't a question. Yes, she did. And your father? He's handling it, I said, the ambiguity tasting like ash. Marco understood immediately. He's handling it, right. Same way he handled it when she cut our overtime pay to pay for her new office furniture. He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. I saw her pull you into that blind spot, Riley, and I'm willing to say that, under oath, the Teamsters don't like management putting hands on anyone, let alone one of our own. And you're one of our own, kid. Always have been. He was my first ally. My second one found me. I'd gone back to the warehouse neighborhood, not the lot itself, but the street that ran behind it. It was a row of small, post-war houses separated from the industrial zone by a chain-link fence. I was just looking, trying to get a feel for the angles, for any other witnesses. A woman was in her back garden, stringing up lights. You're Graham's girl, aren't you? She called out. I stopped. I am Riley. I'm Priya. I live here. She gestured to the house, then to the warehouse. I'm your father's unofficial night shift supervisor. This wall, she tapped the chain-link fence, is about as soundproof as paper. My heart sped up. The other night, did you hear anything? Monday night, around 9:45. Priya smiled, a tight, knowing smile. Honey, I heard everything. I was having a cigarette on my porch. Heard a woman yelling, something about clinging to a company. Then I heard it sounded like someone hit a baseball bat against one of those metal dumpsters. A sharp crack, and then a heavy thud. Scared the birds out of the trees. It was loud. You heard that? Oh, yeah. My audio security system heard it, too. She pointed to a small, sleek camera tucked under her eaves. It's a noisy neighborhood. I keep records. She invited me inside. She sat me down at her kitchen table, gave me a cup of tea, and played the audio file from her home security server. It was muffled, distant, but undeniable. The same sound as my file, but from a different angle. You could hear the wind, the rumble of the van, and then, clearly, crack thud. It's all yours, she said, exporting the file to a flash drive. That woman, Delia, she's bad news. Last month she threatened to have my car towed because it was, and I quote, lowering the aesthetic of the business park. I'd be happy to see her get her comeuppance. 2 down. The next piece came from a place of pure rage. I got an email from a warehouse watcher to my old dormant Redwood account. They're trying to fire me. They're saying I failed to maintain critical infrastructure. That's a lie. She told me to do it. It was Eli. He was a security guard, part of the old guard, not the new guy who had seen me. He'd been with Redwood for 15 years. I met him at a bar. He was already 2 beers in, his face a mask of fury and humiliation. She canned me, Riley, canned me, a month before my pension fully vested. Delia, that... He used a word I wouldn't repeat. What did she tell you to do, Eli? That night, the night, you were there. She called me at home, at 9 p.m., said the dome camera in the service bay, camera 4, was acting up, and that the high-angle one, camera 3, was flickering. My blood went cold. This was before the assault. She said it was looking into it, but for me to log in and put an out-of-service for maintenance tag on both of them in the system log, said she didn't want the insurance company to see a faulty feed. I told her I couldn't do that without a work order. She got loud, said if I wanted to keep my job, I'd do what I was told. So I did it. I logged in from home at 9:15. I tagged the cameras. He was shaking, his anger mixing with a terrible, dawning realization. And then, this morning, they call me into HR. They show me my login. They show me the maintenance tag, and they show me your lawyer's letter. They said I conspired with you to fake an assault or something by tagging the cameras after the fact to make it look like they were broken. They're framing you, I said. They're firing me, he corrected, his voice breaking. Using my login as proof, but I did it before, Riley, not after. She set me up. She set us up. She was planning to have a faulty camera before she ever laid a hand on you. He took a shaky breath. I have the phone log, with her number, at 9:05 p.m., and I'll testify. I'll tell them exactly what she did. This changed everything. It wasn't just assault. It wasn't just fraud. It was premeditated. The legal case was locking into place. Now, the financial one. I couldn't be the one to expose D&K Outfitters. It had to come from someone else. I sat at my North Star desk, eating a bad salad, and thought about the most fastidious, by-the-book person I had ever known at Redwood, May Whitaker. May had been the head of accounts payable for 20 years, until Delia had restructured her into a dead-end office manager role, bringing in her own people. May lived for balanced books. I created a new, anonymous Proton mail account. I sent a one-line message to May's personal email. A friend told me to look at D&K Outfitters. The invoices look strange. The grant money isn't right. I attached one of the phantom invoices I'd downloaded. I hit send. I didn't know what would happen. 5 days later, May Whitaker quietly resigned from Redwood Event Supply. The next day, she started her new job as a senior procurement specialist for the city of High Plains, the very same city council that was overseeing the expo bid. She had seen the fraud, and instead of reporting it, she'd simply taken her evidence to a new, more powerful desk. She was now in a position to see Redwood's bid, and she knew, firsthand, that their safety vendor was a ghost. The circle was tightening. The insurance company, Mid-Continent, responded to my lawyer's letter with their own. They sent a formal warning to Redwood, stating that their non-disclosure of a violent incident on their premises and the subsequent spoliation of evidence by their CEO was a breach of their policy. The premium hike would be astronomical. They were in jeopardy of losing their coverage entirely, 1 week before the bid. Then, the final, beautiful piece. I received a call at my North Star desk. Is this Riley Armitage? The voice was professional, cautious. It is. Who is this? This is going to sound strange. My name is David Kern. I run a small specialty rigging company, Kern Safety. We're a subcontractor for a lot of people. We just got a letter from the city of High Plains asking us to verify a series of invoices submitted by Redwood Event Supply. The invoices have our old branding on them. D&K Outfitters, David and Kern. I almost dropped the phone. I see. Yeah, the problem is, these invoices are for high-angle safety harnesses. We've never, ever sold a single thing to Redwood. We've never even spoken to them. These are fake, and they've got my name on them. My lawyer says I'm now a party to potential fraud. So, my lawyer's talking to the city, but I wanted to talk to you, our names, David and Kern, D&K. Someone is using my company's old identity to steal. I think I know who, I said, and I think I can help. I had it all: witnesses, audio, premeditation, a full-blown financial fraud case. That night, Marco, the Teamster, called me. Hey, kid, there's someone I think you should meet. A reporter, Kayla. She covers the labor beat. She's tough, and she hates companies like Redwood. She's the real deal. I met them both at the diner. Kayla was sharp, with eyes that missed nothing. She listened, not taking notes, just absorbing. It's a hell of a story. Riley, she said. The assault, the cover-up, the fraud. This is big. I could run this tomorrow. It would kill their bid. I looked at her, and for the first time in a week, I felt the pull of the trigger. I could end it. right now. But it wasn't time. No, I said, my voice surprising me with its steadiness. Not yet. You run it now. They'll spin it. They'll say I'm a disgruntled daughter, that I'm faking it to hurt them. They'll bog you down in lawsuits. She's right, Marco said. They'll bury it. So what's the play? Kayla asked. The play, I said, is the bid hearing. They're going to walk into that hearing room, in front of the city council, and lie. They're going to present their safe company and their secure warehouse, and I'm going to be there, and all of you are going to be there. We're not going to let them lie in the press. We're going to let them lie, under oath, to the city, and then we're going to show them the truth. Kayla smiled. I'll be there, with a camera. The pieces were not just in place. They were linked. Jaden had given me the final key, a full, unbroken chain of custody report for the video file, configured with a hash that could be verified by any third party. The law was on my side, the finances were on my side, and now the people were on my side. We were all quiet. We were all waiting. The storm was gathered, just offshore, and Redwood Event Supply was sailing directly into it. The first punch was a clumsy, telegraphed swing. A thick cream-colored envelope arrived at my apartment, delivered by a courier. It wasn't from Redwood's corporate counsel. It was from a high-priced, boutique litigation firm, Delia's personal attack dogs. The letter was a symphony of manufactured outrage. It was full of cease and desist, defamation of character, and slander per se. It accused me of maliciously attempting to interfere in Delia's personal and professional life by threatening to disseminate a falsified and deceptively edited recording. It was a smoke bomb, a desperate, noisy attempt to scare me. They were threatening to sue me for no less than 7 figures if I shared the video. I laughed. I put the letter in my Raven Van / folder, in a new subfolder titled Junk Mail. Delia was so terrified of the video getting out that she had just put in writing, via her own lawyer, that an incident had occurred. She was trying to fight a fire by throwing gasoline on it. The second punch was quieter, and it hurt much more. He was waiting for me after my shift at North Star, not by my car, but near the exit of the employee parking lot. His own car parked in dark. My father. He looked a decade older. His shoulders were slumped. The sharp confidence of the CEO replaced by the haggard exhaustion of a man who knew he was trapped. He got out of his car as I approached, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. Riley, please, just 2 minutes. I have nothing to say to you, Graham. Don't. He winced at the use of his first name. Don't do this. We don't have to do this. We can make an agreement, an internal arrangement. An agreement? I stopped, the car key in my hand. What kind of agreement? You stay away from Redwood, from the business, from Delia. You let this go. And we make it right. A settlement, whatever you need, for your trouble. We can put this all behind us. We can keep the family quiet. We can just heal. I looked at this man, my father, standing in the rain, offering to buy my silence, offering to pay me off for the assault his wife had committed and that he had covered up. Heal, I said, my voice as cold and flat as the pavement. You think this is about a settlement? You think this is a negotiation? I got in my car. He called after me. Riley, please don't ruin us. Don't ruin me. I drove home. I didn't answer the 5 calls from him. I didn't answer the text. Instead, I replied to his lawyer, and I carbon copied my father. The body of the email contained no text, just an embedded spreadsheet. It had 4 columns. Column A was titled Physical Assault. The cell below it contained one file name, Cam4 Mirror MP4. Column B was titled Financial Fraud. The cell below it, D&K Phantom Invoices PDF. Column C, Whistleblower Retaliation. Below it, Eli Felton Termination Notice. F. Column D, Evidence Spoliation. Below it, Graham Delete Log. Text. I added one line of text below the spreadsheet. Which one of these items is covered under the family's internal agreement? I hit send. The response was a profound, terrified silence. The phone call stopped. Then, Delia's third punch, the one I had been waiting for. If she couldn't sue me privately or buy me off quietly, she would try to destroy me publicly. It started as a whisper. A source close to the company told a local business blogger that Redwood Event Supply was fending off an unfortunate family-related extortion attempt. The narrative was classic. I was the disgruntled stepdaughter. I was emotionally unstable, angry about changes to my mother's legacy. I was trying to shake down the company for a sizable, unearned payout, just as it was on the verge of its greatest success. It was a smear campaign. It was meant to poison the well, to paint me as an unreliable, hysterical woman before I ever had a chance to speak. My phone lit up. It was Kayla, the reporter. "Riley, this disgruntled daughter crap is getting thick," she said, her voice sharp. "My editor is seeing it. You need to give me a statement. You have to deny it." "No," I said, sitting at my North Star desk, my own spreadsheets open. "What do you mean?" "No. They're painting you as a liar and an extortionist." "I will not respond to a single accusation. I will not deny anything. They are playing checkers in a burning building, Kayla. Let them. My silence is the one thing they can't control." She was quiet for a second. "Okay, so you won't talk. Fine, but I'm not going to sit here. I'm sending my questions." 20 minutes later, I saw the email go out. Kayla's official request to Redwood's Public Relations Department. To Redwood Event Supply. 1. Can you comment on allegations of a physical assault by a senior executive in your parking lot on date? 2. We have obtained invoices from a vendor named D&K Outfitters. Can you confirm this is your primary safety supplier for the High Plains Expo bid? 3. Why was 15-year employee Eli Felton terminated for maintenance failures on the same night as the alleged assault? The effect was instantaneous. The next day, a public notice. Redwood Event Supply has requested a 1-week extension on its final submission for the High Plains Expo bid, citing administrative delays in securing third-party safety certifications. They were stalling. Kayla's questions had hit a nerve. They knew their D&K fraud was about to be exposed. They were scrambling to find a real vendor, to backdate contracts, to plug the hole in their sinking ship. But the city council was now spooked. They had May Whitaker on the inside, ringing alarm bells. They had a reporter asking about phantom vendors. They denied the extension. Instead, the city attorney's office, citing the serious nature of the public allegations and the need for transparency in public contracts, issued a formal demand. They wanted all of Redwood's safety certifications. And they wanted the original, unedited security camera footage from the night of the alleged assault. The trap was closing. I knew what would happen next. Graham had 2 choices. Admit he deleted the footage, a crime, or produce a fake, also a crime. He chose the lie. Hannah, my lawyer, received a copy of Redwood's formal submission to the city. It contained a single video file. Cam 4 Service Bay Corrupted, MP4. The file was tiny. It didn't play. It also contained a signed, notarized letter from Redwood's new head of IT, stating that a catastrophic, unrecoverable drive failure had corrupted the data from that night. The file was a remnant, the only piece that could be salvaged. My father, the man who wanted to heal, had just submitted a fraudulent file and a false affidavit to a government body. He thought it was his word against mine. He was wrong. I didn't call May Whitaker. I didn't need to. I simply forwarded her one simple, tiny text file from my personal email to hers. Jaden Mid-Continent Checksum text. It wasn't the video. It was the video's fingerprint, the unique, unforgeable mathematical hash generated by the Mid-Continent insurance server at 10 p.m. that night, proving their copy was authentic and intact. My note to May was simple. May, your IT department can verify this. It's the SHA-256 hash of the real file held by the insurance company. Compare this hash to the corrupted file my father submitted. See if they match. The call from Hannah came 2 hours later. She was talking so fast I could barely understand her. They did it, Riley. The city's tech team ran the hash. It's a perfect match for the insurance log. The file is real, and Mid-Continent has it. The corrupted file Graham submitted? It's a fake. A new file. Created yesterday. The metadata is fresh. They can prove he faked it. The city council now knew. They didn't just suspect a cover-up. They had forensic, mathematical proof that my father had personally submitted a fraudulent file to conceal a crime. The word was spoliation. The news must have hit the Redwood offices like a bomb. The panic must have been breathtaking, because the final pathetic move came that afternoon. I got a text from Marco. You won't believe this. They're holding an all-hands meeting in the warehouse. Delia is at the podium. She's saying they've been the victims of a sophisticated corporate espionage attack. Me, what? Marco. She's blaming Eli and Jaden. She's saying they conspired to falsify data and frame her to extort the company. She's saying they are the ones who faked the video and the logs. Delia, cornered, was doing what she always did. She was looking for a sacrifice. She was trying to blame the security guard she'd already fired and the IT tech she thought was long gone. I stood up from my desk at North Star. I looked at Marco's text, and I started to laugh. Marco. Kid, it's not funny. They're trying to pin it on Jaden. I typed back, my fingers flying. Me. Marco. It's hilarious. Jaden hasn't worked there for 2 days. As I typed, an email pinged in my inbox. It was from Hannah. Subject, FW, sworn affidavit. You're not going to believe this, Hannah said when I called her. Jaden, your IT guy, he's not just a former employee. He's now a material witness. He just submitted this to the city attorney. I opened the file. It was a 20-page sworn statement. It detailed Redwood's entire server architecture. It detailed the cron job. It detailed the Mid-Continent mirror. It included the full checksum log. And it concluded with a damning personal anecdote. A log of a frantic phone call he'd received from Graham Armitage at 11:30 p.m. on the night of the assault, asking hypothetically how one could be 100% sure that a deleted file was gone forever from every server, even the backups. The trap was set. The bait was taken. The lies were all on paper. And the High Plains Expo bid hearing was in 48 hours. The City Council's discovery of the faked video file was an explosion. It vaporized my father's credibility and sent the council members scrambling. They weren't just dealing with a potentially violent contractor. They were dealing with a liar who had committed a felony by submitting a false document to a government body. The assault was the fuse. The spoliation was the bomb. But the financial fraud? That was the fallout. And it would poison the ground for years. While the City Council's lawyers were sharpening their knives over the evidence tampering, I was moving on to the next phase. The Raven Van folder was about a crime, but the D&K file was about a different crime, one that involved public money. I used my anonymous Proton Mail account, the one I'd used to tip off May Whitaker. This time, I didn't send it to an individual. I sent it to the State Comptroller's Public Grant Integrity Hotline. My email was simple, cold, and packed with evidence. Subject: Whistleblower Report. Grant Fraud. Redwood Event Supply. To the Office of the Comptroller. I am submitting evidence of systematic fraud related to the Local Business Safety Improvement Grant, Grant ID 4G881. The recipient, Redwood Event Supply, has been funneling grant money to a phantom vendor, D&K Outfitters, which is a shell corporation registered to a PCO box. Attached you will find 1. Invoices from D&K Outfitters for non-existent safety equipment. 2. Corresponding payment authorizations from Redwood, signed by Executive Delia Knox. 3. Proof of payment from the grant-funded accounts. 4. Evidence of recycled/fraudulent serial numbers used on these invoices. This is a direct theft of public funds intended for worker safety. I hit send. I was no longer just a victim of assault. I was a state's witness. With the legal and financial fires now burning, the walls around Redwood were getting high. The bid hearing was in less than 48 hours, and the company was in a full-blown panic. I, however, was calm. I was back in the data. The first fraud was the most obvious one, the D&K vendor. But Delia was arrogant, and arrogant people are sloppy. I knew there was more. I still had my low-level intranet access. It hadn't been revoked. They were too busy putting out the fire with the city council to worry about my old, forgotten credentials. I went back to her corporate expense reports. The internal consulting fees were a good start, but they were too vague. I needed something concrete, something a jury could understand. I found it, a 3-day charge from 2 months prior. Attendance, Western Logistics, Safety and Compliance Conference, hotel, per diem, conference fees, total $4,200. It was a perfectly normal-looking business expense. Except I checked the dates, and then I checked Delia's public-facing, obnoxiously curated social media. The conference dates were Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On that exact Friday, Delia had posted a photo of her feet on a beach lounger, the caption, "Finally, a much-needed family getaway." The location tag, Sunny Isles Beach, Florida. She had expensed a family beach vacation as a business conference. She wasn't just stealing with her phantom company, she was stealing with her corporate card. It was blatant, stupid, and utterly undeniable. I downloaded the expense report. I took a screenshot of the social media post. I added them to the Ravenvan/file. Next, the payroll. The 3 ghost employees, Smith, Davis, and Chen. I had their names, but I needed to know where the money was going. I dug into the payroll processing files. It was harder, more encrypted. But Delia's sloppiness saved me again. She hadn't bothered to create unique authorization chains. The payroll for these 3 employees was set for direct deposit. The bank routing number, it was the same for all 3, and the account numbers were sequential. All 3 paychecks were being deposited, every 2 weeks, into 3 brand new accounts at the same single branch of a local community bank. The branch where, I cross-referenced, Delia had her personal D&K Outfitters business account. She was paying herself 3 extra salaries. And the final, beautiful nail in the coffin. I pulled the digital authorization logs for those payroll additions to add a new employee to the direct deposit system. A senior manager had to sign off. The log was clear. New employee, J. Smith, authorized by Delia Knox, e-signature DK901. New employee, M. Davis, authorized by Delia Knox, e-signature DK901. New employee, R. Chen, authorized by Delia Knox, e-signature DK901. She had personally, digitally, signed her name to her own crime, over and over again. As I was compiling this, my lawyer's office sent over a new document. The city attorney, now in a full-blown investigation, had received a formal sworn letter from Mr. David Kern, the real owner of Kern Safety. His letter was devastating. It stated, in no uncertain terms, I am confirming that the invoices submitted by Redwood Event Supply, using my company's former name, D&K Outfitters, are fraudulent. We have never supplied, quoted, or communicated with Redwood Event Supply. We have never delivered the paid lots of reflective vests or harnesses. These documents are forgeries. The dominoes were no longer just falling, they were cascading. The first official body to act was the state comptroller. They moved with a speed that was terrifying. Less than 24 hours after I submitted my anonymous report, the State Financial Crimes Division issued a notice. They weren't just investigating, they were acting. They issued a formal order to Redwood's bank, freezing all payments to D&K Outfitters. They had also frozen the corresponding receiving accounts at Delia's community bank branch. Her money pipeline was cut off. It all happened too fast for them. Delia and Graham were trying to fight a public relations war over an assault, and they were suddenly being gutted by a financial crimes investigation they didn't even see coming. The call came at 12:30 a.m. I was asleep. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a frantic, vibrating sound. I saw the caller ID, Graham Armitage. I let it ring 3 times. Then I picked it up. I said nothing. Riley? His voice was a wreck. It was a hoarse, terrified whisper. Riley, please, you have to stop this. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, my voice dead. The banks, the city, the comptroller. Jesus, Riley, this isn't about the other night anymore. This is the company. This is everything. It was always about everything, I said. Listen to me, he pleaded, his voice breaking. Delia, she made mistakes. She's going to fix it. She'll return the money. She'll step down from the bid. We can fix this. Just call them off. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Don't push this any further. Don't destroy everything. I was silent. I listened to his ragged breathing. He was begging for my help, begging me to lie for him, just as he had refused to tell the truth for me. Riley, honey, please, say something. I have to go, Graham. No, wait, what do you want? What will make this stop? I'll give you anything. Just stop. I held the phone to my ear, and I said it, quietly. You watched the video. You saw her hit me. You saw my head hit the van. You saw the bruise on my face, and you hit delete. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. It was a vast, cold, empty space. He wasn't crying. He wasn't yelling. He was just gone. The man I had called Dad had vanished, replaced by this hollow thing. I could hear his shallow breathing. He had no answer. He knew, in that moment, that I had him. He had chosen, and now I had chosen. He hung up without another word. The next morning, the call wasn't from my father. It was from Redwood's real lawyers, the expensive ones, the ones who handled corporate implosions. Hannah, my lawyer, was on the conference line. Mr. Sanderson, she said, her voice crisp. My client is listening. Ms. Armitage, a new gravelly voice said, my clients, Mr. Armitage and Ms. Knox, are prepared to offer a comprehensive settlement to resolve all potential claims, both civil and otherwise. We are prepared to offer a substantial 7-figure sum. In exchange for what? Hannah asked, though we both knew the answer. In exchange for a full and final release of all claims, Sanderson said, and of course, a full binding and permanent non-disclosure agreement. Ms. Armitage would turn over all copies of all materials in her possession, video, audio, financial, all of it. She walks away, and this entire matter vanishes. It's a very, very generous offer. A 7-figure offer to buy my silence, I said, speaking for the first time. It's an offer to move on. Ms. Armitage, he said, his voice slick. No, I said. Riley, Hannah started, but I cut her off. No, I said again, louder. No NDA, no settlement. Ms. Armitage, Sanderson said, his patience slipping. You may think you have leverage, but... My counteroffer, I interrupted. It's not money? You want this to vanish? Here's my offer. 1. A full, independent, forensic audit of Redwood's books, going back 5 years, paid for by the company but reporting to the city. 2. Full whistleblower protection and reinstatement for Eli Felton, including his full pension and back pay. 3. Delia Knox is removed from the company, permanently. There was a stunned silence on the line. And Graham? Hannah asked gently. I paused. Graham stays, I said, the words tasting like poison. He stays, and he presides over the cleanup. He gets to watch, every day, as the company he tried to protect by sacrificing me is torn down to the studs and rebuilt by strangers. He doesn't get to run. Sanderson was sputtering. That is not an offer. That is a demand. It's preposterous. It's the only offer on the table, I said. You have 24 hours until the bid hearing. I hung up. Hannah called me back a minute later. Riley, that was a move. Are you sure? I'm sure, I said. This isn't about money. It's about sanitation. The air in the room felt different, colder. I looked at the Raven Van folder on my desktop. My father had called me, begging me not to destroy the family. He still didn't understand. I wasn't the daughter he'd failed to protect. I was the auditor he'd failed to identify. And the audit was just beginning. He could feel it now. He knew, as he sat in his silent, dark office, that his daughter wasn't coming back, not ever. The hearing room at City Hall was a theater of manufactured gravity. It was all dark, polished wood, high ceilings, and the stale, papery smell of bureaucracy. The fluorescent lights buzzed with a specific, anxious frequency, too bright, making everyone look pale and sick. I sat in the third row. Hannah was beside me, her briefcase open on her lap, containing nothing but a bottle of water and a copy of the city charter. We needed nothing else. In the back row, near the exit, sat Marco, his arms crossed, a silent mountain of Teamster solidarity. Beside him, Eli Felton, the security guard Delia had framed, looking nervous but resolute. The press section was a pit of quiet anticipation. Kayla, the reporter, met my gaze and gave me a single, sharp nod. Her pen was poised. And then there was the front row, the Redwood Event Supply delegation. They were a fortress. Graham, my father, sat in the center. He was a statue carved from ice. He was wearing his best suit, the one he wore for shareholder meetings, but his face was gray. He stared, unblinking, at the raised wooden dais where the city council sat. He hadn't looked back, not once. Delia was beside him, a vision in a severe navy blue suit. She radiated an icy, reptilian confidence. She was whispering to Sanderson, their lead counsel, and she even managed a small, tight smile. She thought this was a negotiation. She thought she could control the room. The chairwoman, a woman with a reputation for zero tolerance, gavelled the meeting to order. They droned through zoning permits and budgetary approvals. My heart wasn't racing. It was slow, heavy, each beat a precise, measured tick, like the timer on a bomb. We now come to Agenda Item 7, the chairwoman said, her voice amplified by the microphone. The final review and vote on the High Plains Expo exclusive logistics contract, Redwood Event Supply, represented by Mr. Graham Armitage and Ms. Delia Knox, has the floor. Sanderson, all smooth condescension, stood up. Madam Chairwoman, members of the council, Redwood is honored to be here. We are proud of our proposal, our long history in this community, and our comprehensive, state-of-the-art safety protocols. The chairwoman held up a hand. The gesture was sharp, cutting him off mid-sentence. Mr. Sanderson, the council has read your bid. We are, however, more concerned with the serious allegations that have been brought to our attention regarding those safety protocols, specifically, an assault on your property, a formal whistleblower complaint regarding safety certifications, and allegations of evidence tampering by your CEO. A low murmur swept the room. Delia's smile tightened. Graham didn't move. As we stated in our formal reply, Sanderson said, his voice losing some of its silk, that was an unfortunate family misunderstanding, which has been resolved. As for the video, as we submitted in our affidavit, there was a catastrophic, unrecoverable drive failure, a technical tragedy. Yes, the chairwoman said, her voice heavy with sarcasm. The corrupted file, Mr. Technician, please display Redwood's submission. On the large projector screens at the front of the room, a file icon appeared. Cam 4 Service Bay Corrupted, MP4. The technician clicked it. A loading bar appeared, stuttered, and then a red box popped up. Error. File unreadable. Sanderson nodded, a mask of regret. You see? A terrible loss. We were devastated. I am sure you were, the chairwoman said. She looked down at her notes. A terrible, convenient loss, which is why this council took the liberty of following up. She paused. Mr. Hastings, from Mid-Continent Mutual? A man in a gray suit stood up from the second row. Here, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Hastings, you are Redwood's insurance carrier. Did you also experience this catastrophic failure? No, ma'am, Hastings said, his voice clear. Our system is redundant. We maintain an immutable, off-site mirror of all client security data for 30 days. The files from the night in question were uploaded and checksum verified at 10 p.m., approximately 58 minutes before Mr. Armitage's logged-in attempt to delete the local file. Delia's head snapped toward the insurance man. Her eyes, for the first time, showed a flicker of panic. Sanderson looked like he'd been slapped. Graham just closed his eyes. He knew. It was over. And you have provided this file to the council? The chairwoman asked. Yes, ma'am. As per the fraud and spoliation clauses in their policy, we were legally compelled to, Hastings replied. Mr. Technician, the chairwoman commanded, please load the file provided by Mid-Continent Mutual. A new file appeared on the screen. Cam 4 Mirror, MP4. The technician hit play. The room was plunged into a dead, horrifying silence, broken only by the tinny audio from the speakers, the rumble of the van, the wind, and then Delia's voice, tinny and sharp. Stop clinging to your father and this company anymore. It was followed by my own, weaker reply, and then her voice, loud and clipping the audio. Shut up. And then the sound, crack. It was not a slap, it was a gunshot. It was a violent, percussive crack of bone on bone that echoed through the packed hearing room. It was followed, a millisecond later, by the deep, heavy, metallic thud of my skull hitting the side of the van. A woman in the press section let out a strangled gasp. Someone else swore, a low, sharp curse. I watched Delia's face in the front row. It was a blank, white mask of disbelief. Not guilt, not shame. Pure, unadulterated shock that she had been caught. The video played on, the guard. Her voice, suddenly liquid gold. She just tripped. Silly girl. Oh. The technician stopped the file. The screen went dark. The silence was a physical weight. Mr. Hastings, the insurance man, spoke into the void. For the record, the SHA 256 hash of the file you just viewed is a perfect match for the upload log. It is forensically, mathematically, and legally pristine. The chairwoman nodded slowly. She picked up a single sheet of paper. And this, she said, her voice shaking with a cold, controlled fury, is the affidavit, submitted yesterday, signed by Mr. Graham Armitage. She read it aloud. I, Graham Armitage, do hereby swear and affirm that the security footage from the night of date was irretrievably lost due to a catastrophic hardware failure. She stopped reading. She put the paper down. She took off her reading glasses, and she stared, directly, at my father. Every single person in that room, the press, the council, the other bidders, the audience, turned and stared at Graham. The thwack, thwack, thwack of the press cameras was the only sound. They were capturing his humiliation, the moment his perjury was made public. Ms. Riley Armitage, the chairwoman said, her voice softening just a fraction. You have requested 3 minutes of public comment. Hannah touched my elbow. I stood. I walked to the public podium, the one opposite the Redwood delegation. I could feel Delia's hatred boring into my back. I did not look at her. I did not look at my father. I looked at the council members, one by one. I placed my phone on the wooden lectern and started the 3-minute timer. My name is Riley Armitage. I'm a senior logistics analyst. My voice was steady. It didn't even tremble. I am not here to discuss the assault. The video speaks for itself. The medical report documenting blunt force trauma speaks for itself. The server logs showing the deletion of evidence speak for themselves. I looked at the notes I had prepared, though I didn't need them. I am here to talk about a pattern. When I refused a cash settlement to stay silent, I was subjected to a public smear campaign. When I refused to be intimidated, I was threatened with a lawsuit. When this council requested the truth, this company's CEO, my father, submitted a forged affidavit. I paused, letting the word hang in the air. Forged. This is not a family drama. This is a pattern of behavior, violence, lies, cover-up, and retaliation, and it goes deeper. I nodded to the side. The city's independent auditor, who was given my findings, can now speak to the motive for this desperation. A man in a nondescript suit, the auditor I'd met, stepped up to the main podium. "Madam Chairwoman," he said, and he put a new document on the projector. It was a spreadsheet. It was my spreadsheet. "We have completed our preliminary investigation," the auditor said, his voice flat and brutal. "The vendor, D&K Outfitters, listed as Redwood's primary safety supplier, is a shell corporation. It is registered to a post office box. The serial numbers on its invoices are fraudulent, recycled from other companies. The paid safety equipment was never delivered." He clicked to the next slide. All payments to this phantom vendor, totaling over $200,000 in public grant money, were deposited into a series of bank accounts controlled by Ms. Delia Knox. The room exploded. "Lies! It's a lie!" Delia had sprung from her chair. She was on her feet, her face a grotesque mask of rage, her navy blue suit suddenly looking like a costume. Her chair had crashed to the floor behind her. "It's a conspiracy, a frame-up." She was pointing, her finger shaking, not at me, but at the back row, at Eli, at Jaden, who had just arrived. It was them, the technical staff, disgruntled employees. They faked the books. They faked the video. They're working with her. Her fingers snapped toward me. This ungrateful child, trying to destroy us. It's the forces against this family. Sanderson was grabbing her arm, his face ashen. "Delia, sit down. For God's sake, be quiet." But she was gone. The polished, corporate shark was gone, replaced by a cornered, screaming animal. Bang, bang, bang. The chairwoman's gavel was a sledgehammer. "Order! Order in this chamber! Ms. Knox, you are out of order. Sit down." The room fell into a shocked, trembling silence. Delia stood there, panting, her hair coming undone. The chairwoman looked at Delia. She looked at Graham, who had not moved. He was a dead man. She looked at the rest of the council. They all nodded. "This council," the chairwoman said, her voice now a blade of ice, "finds that Redwood Event Supply has acted in bad faith, submitted fraudulent documents to this body, and is engaged in what appears to be a significant criminal conspiracy." Bang. "The bid for the High Plains Expo is hereby and permanently denied." Bang. "And this council is immediately referring this entire matter, the assault, the evidence spoliation, and the financial fraud, to the district attorney's office for immediate criminal prosecution." Bang. It was done. My 3-minute timer beeped, a polite, digital sound in the echoing silence. I turned it off. I turned to walk back to my seat. The room was chaos. The press was flooding the aisle, a wave of cameras and microphones rushing the front row. Sanderson was frantically stuffing papers into his briefcase. Delia was frozen, her mouth open, finally, utterly silent. I walked past the press, and I saw my father. He was still sitting, a small gray island in the middle of the storm. He was staring at the table, at his own hands, folded neatly in front of him. Kayla's photographer was right there, the lens a foot from his face. The flash went off. Pop, pop, pop. The flashes captured the image of the fallen patriarch. He raised his head, as if in a dream. His eyes, dark and hollow, found mine. For a long second, we just looked at each other. There was no apology in his eyes, No remorse, just a void, a vast, empty recognition of his own end. I didn't smile. I didn't scowl. I gave him nothing. I was a mirror, reflecting his own choices back at him. He flinched. He broke contact first. Graham Armitage, CEO, bowed his head under the blinding flashes, his hands coming up too late to shield his face from the world he had let burn. The hearing room was a feeding frenzy, but I didn't stay to watch. I let Hannah run interference, her hand on my back, guiding me through the media scrum that had formed near the exit. The questions were a wall of noise. "Riley, when did you find out? Was your father in on it? How long was the fraud happening?" I said nothing. I kept my eyes fixed on the heavy oak doors. Marco and Eli formed a small, protective wedge, and we pushed through into the marble hallway, the sounds of the chaotic hearing room finally muffled by the closing doors. The aftermath was not a single event. It was a series of rapid, cascading system failures. By the time I got back to my apartment, the first official shockwave had hit. Redwood's status as a city vendor was not just denied, it was frozen. The city council, in an emergency addendum, had voted to suspend all existing contracts with Redwood, pending the district attorney's investigation. This was not a fine, this was a corporate death sentence. Redwood's entire business model was built on municipal and large-scale event contracts. The news hit the financial wires at 3:05 p.m. At 3:10 p.m., Redwood's primary commercial bank, the one that held their massive line of credit, put a call into Graham. They were re-evaluating their credit risk profile. They were calling the loan. The company's cash flow was, in an instant, gone. I knew this not because anyone told me, but because I saw the lights on at the Redwood warehouse late that night. I had driven past, just to see. The executive parking lot was full, a crisis. But Delia wasn't in that meeting. She was a different kind of animal. She wasn't fighting for the company. She was fighting for herself. She was at home, in the sprawling glass and steel house my mother's money had paid for. She was in the walk-in safe, a relic of my mother's old-world paranoia. And she was doing the one thing she knew how to do. She was gathering assets. She swept trays of jewelry, necklaces, bracelets, watches my father had bought her, into a leather duffel bag. She was pragmatic. She left the art. It was too big. She took the bearer bonds my father had foolishly shown her. And then she made her fatal mistake. She went to her office computer. It was almost midnight. She logged into Redwood's payroll system, the one she had used to pay her ghost employees. She tried to authorize one last massive transfer, a severance package for D&K Outfitters, for $150,000. She was so arrogant, so blinded by her panic. She didn't realize that the company's accounts were no longer just frozen by the bank. They were also being monitored. The bank's compliance department, alerted by the comptroller's investigation, had flagged all of Redwood's accounts. The midnight transfer request set off a high-priority alert. It was a transfer to a known fraudulent entity. The system didn't just deny the transfer, it locked the account. It locked Delia out. The bank's automated fraud system sent an immediate, high-priority alert to the State Financial Crimes Division and to the DAS-AMA's office. Subject: active attempt to transfer funds by subject of criminal investigation. Delia was trapped. Her escape money was gone. She had just handed the prosecution a new, real-time felony, attempted money laundering. My phone rang at 2 a.m. I looked at the screen. Graham Armitage. I picked it up. Silence. Riley? His voice was... I have no word for it. It was not the voice of my father. It was the voice of a ghost. Riley, the police, they're here. I see. No, not for me, for Delia. They have a warrant for the transfers. She's gone. Gone? She's not here. Her car is gone. Her closet is open. Riley, he was rambling, the words tumbling out. I need you to help me. Help me talk to the press. Just one statement. We We can say Delia was confused, that she was acting alone, that she's going to step down, that she'll leave the company. We can save the company. Riley, we can save something. He was still trying to bargain, still trying to find a deal. He was offering me Delia as a sacrifice, just as he'd offered me to her. I told the truth, Graham, I said. My voice was tired. I just said what happened. The rest is your choice. I hung up. Delia wasn't a criminal mastermind. She was a petty, greedy fool. She hadn't disappeared into the night. She had gotten into her white Mercedes convertible, the one with the license plate D. Knox, and she had driven south on the interstate. She was so panicked. She was driving 30 miles over the speed limit. She didn't know that the DA's office, alerted by the bank, had put a bolo, "Be on the lookout," on her car. It wasn't a high-speed chase. It was just a routine flag. She was stopped at the state line toll plaza. A state trooper, sipping a cold coffee, had his automated plate reader ping, "Vehicle associated with active felony warrant." The trooper walked to her window. She tried to smile. She tried to cry. She tried to offer him money. She was arrested at a toll booth, in her silk pajamas and a fur coat, her leather duffel bag of diamonds on the passenger seat. The dominoes were falling faster now. At 6 a.m., too quiet. Plainclothes detectives came to my father's house. They were not there for Delia. They were there for him. "Mr. Armitage, we need you to come downtown. We just have a few questions." It wasn't a request. Graham, in his panic, had forgotten the one crime that was entirely, exclusively, his: spoliation of evidence, submitting a fraudulent affidavit to a government body. He called Sanderson, his lawyer, Sanderson, his voice thick with sleep and exasperation, told him the truth. "Don't say a word. Graham, don't speak. Don't even breathe. We're not fighting this. We're making a deal. You are going to plead." The family Delia had built, the one my father had chosen, began to eat itself. My stepsister, Britt, Delia's daughter from her first marriage, was not a fool. She was at the house when the detectives came for Graham. She saw the game was over. She saw her mother's arrest on the morning news. She called the DA's office before 9 a.m. She was offering a trade, immunity for testimony. Britt was the one who ran Delia's consulting books. She knew where all the other bodies were buried. She didn't just know about D&K. She knew about the landscaping fees that were paying for her own college tuition. She knew about the internal repairs that were actually a down payment on her condo. She sang. She gave them Delia's entire off-the-books operation, wrapped in a bow. By 10 a.m., the house of cards was just a pile of debris. Jaden, my IT savior, walked into the newly established forensic auditor's office at Redwood. He was carrying a small, hardened drive. He didn't just hand over the checksums, he handed them everything: the complete, unbroken chain of custody for every file, the logs from Eli's account, showing he'd tagged the cameras before the assault, the logs of my father's search query, how to permanently delete files from server backups. He handed them the entire digital history of the crime, a perfect, undeniable narrative. At noon, Kayla's story hit the front page of the city's news site. It was a masterpiece of cold, factual rage. The headline was devastating. "Warehouse Violence and Accounting Magic. How Redwood Supply's Family Secrets Killed the High Plains Bid." The story was brutal. It had the video. It had the audio. It had quotes from Marco about workplace safety. It had Eli's story of being framed. It had the D&K invoices, side by side with David Kern's statement. But the worst part, for my father, was the public's reaction. The story wasn't just about Delia's fraud. It was about his choice. The comments section, the social media feeds, they all focused on one simple, terrible fact. He watched, and he hit delete. Kayla's story, and the hundreds of comments that followed, didn't call him a criminal. They called him something worse. They called him a coward. The phrase that stuck, the one that became the new narrative, was silent complicity. He wasn't the powerful CEO. He was the weak husband, the man who had sold his own daughter for a contract he didn't even get to keep. The final, inevitable call came that afternoon. It was from the small minority shareholders, the ones who had invested their pensions, the ones who had known my mother. They didn't just want Delia gone. They didn't just want Graham to plead. They wanted him out. They filed an emergency motion to remove him from the board of directors, to strip him of his CEO title, and to replace him with an interim-appointed receiver. The company my mother had built, the one my father had tried to protect with a single, cowardly click, was no longer his. He had lost his wife, his company, his reputation, and his daughter, all in a single, catastrophic 24-hour period. It was a week before he called for the last time, a week of headlines, of lawyers, of the grinding, impersonal machinery of the state taking over. Delia, denied bail as a flight risk, was in a holding cell, her name now a permanent, public synonym for greed. Britt, her daughter, was a star witness for the prosecution. The company, my mother's company, was in receivership, a team of strangers in suits walking its halls, deciding what to sell and what to save. The call wasn't from Graham, it was from Hannah, my lawyer. "He's agreed," she said. "He wants to sign, but he has one condition." "No," I said, my voice flat. "No conditions. He wants to give it to you in person," she said. "He wants to meet." I thought about it. I thought about saying no, about letting the lawyers handle the final, sterile transaction, but it felt incomplete. It felt like an audit with a missing signature. "Where?" I asked. "The showroom. At Redwood? Tonight? 7 o'clock. The main showroom was a cavern. It was where my mother used to display her best work. Gala tents, dance floors, elaborate lighting rigs. Now, it was just an empty, cold warehouse. The receiver had sold off all the display stock. All that was left was the smell of dust and the echo of our footsteps on the cool, polished cement floor. A single harsh work light on a stand lit the center of the room, throwing long, grotesque shadows. In the center, under the light, was a single metal folding table and 2 folding chairs. And in the distance, just visible through the bay doors, parked in the now infamous lot, was the white van. They had cleaned it. It sat there, gleaming, innocent, a silent, metal witness. He was already sitting in one of the chairs when I arrived. Hannah was with me, but she stayed by the door, a silent sentinel. Graham Armitage was a shell. The man I had seen in the hearing room was gone, replaced by someone smaller, grayer. He looked, for the first time in his life, his actual age. I sat in the other chair. The metal was cold through my clothes. I placed a single, stapled document on the table between us. He stared at it. He didn't touch it. "I saw it," he whispered. His voice was a dry rasp, a sound that didn't carry in the huge, empty room. I said nothing. I just waited. "The video," he clarified, as if I didn't know. "I saw it. I saw her hit you. I saw your head. I saw it all." He looked up at me, his eyes dark, hollow pits in the harsh light. I was scared. I was so scared. The bid, the company, Delia. I thought I was going to lose everything. "You did," I said. "It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement of fact, an inventory." "I know," he said. "I know." He finally looked at the document. This is brutal. Riley?" "It's fair," I said. "It's the truth." I had not negotiated. The paper in front of him was not the settlement his lawyers had wanted. It was my final audit. He would plead guilty to the spoliation charge. The DA had already agreed to probation in exchange for his full cooperation against Delia. That was his legal fate. This was his moral one. The document in front of him was a voluntary agreement. He would resign, effective immediately, from the board of the company he no longer controlled. He would take his remaining personal shares, the ones not tied up in Delia's frozen assets, the ones that had come from my mother's original stake, and he would transfer all of them, not to me. He would transfer them into a new, independently managed trust fund, the Redwood Labor Compensation and Safety Fund, a fund dedicated to compensating the employees who had been cheated by Delia's schemes, and to providing back pay and pension security for Eli Felton. He would cooperate, fully, with the new interim board and the forensic auditors. And the last clause? He would issue a full public apology, not a legal statement, an apology, one that I had written and which he would sign. It admitted his silent complicity, his failure of leadership, and his profound personal and professional cowardice. He had read it. He knew what was in it. He picked up the pen I had placed on the table. He held it, his hand trembling so badly the pen rattled against the metal. "After all this," he whispered, looking at me, his eyes swimming with a desperate, pathetic, human hope. "After everything, is it possible? Can you ever forgive me?" I looked at my father, the man who had hit delete, the man who had begged me to save his family, the one that did not include me, the man who was now, finally, broken. "Forgiveness is a matter of time, Graham," I said. "It's not a clause in a settlement. This isn't about my forgiveness. This is about your atonement." His face crumpled. He understood. There was no deal for him here, no quick path back, just the cold, hard work. He bent his head. He took a shaky breath, and he signed the first page. He signed the second. He signed the third. The sound of the cheap ballpoint pen scratching on the paper, the sharp click as he initialed the bottom of each page, was the only sound in the vast, empty room. It was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of a lock, finally, turning, the sound of a door, finally, closing. He slid the document across the table. He didn't look up. I took the pages. I stood up. Hannah moved forward to join me. I looked at him one last time, a small, gray man at a folding table, alone in the dark, in the ruins of the company he had destroyed by trying to save it. I turned, and I walked away. The trials were a formality. Delia, faced with Britt's testimony, the bank's logs, and David Kern's invoices, pleaded guilty to 3 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of aggravated assault. She was sentenced to 8 years in a federal prison. Redwood Event Supply was restructured. The interim board, using the new compensation fund, reinstated Eli with full honors. He was now the head of warehouse safety. The company was smaller, humbler, but it was, for the first time in a decade, honest. I refused all non-disclosure agreements. I had no interest in them. My story was not for sale, and it was not a secret. The city, humbled by its own near miss, offered me a role. They asked me to join their new warehouse safety and compliance task force. I accepted, as an unpaid consultant. My first recommendation was a citywide mandate for third-party, immutable, off-site security storage. They passed it unanimously. With the small amount of money I had from my mother's original will, the part Delia had never been able to touch, I started a foundation. It was small, just a website and a legal defense fund. I called it the Behind the Van Fund. It wasn't for children. It was for people like me, adults, in workplaces, who were bullied, harassed, or assaulted, and who needed a voice. It was a good day. It was a good day. About 6 months later, I was walking from my North Star office, where I had just given my 2 weeks' notice. The sun was out. I took a different route. I walked past the Redwood lot. It was busy again. Trucks were moving. A new, brighter logo was on the wall, and on the corner of the service bay, where the one red light had blinked, there was a new array, 3 different cameras, from 3 different angles, and a new, bright white LED floodlight that had banished the shadows completely. There were no more blind spots. I found myself stopping, right at the edge of the lot. The white van was still there. It was just a truck, just a piece of the fleet. It was clean, heading out for a delivery. I stood there for a long time. I watched it. I thought about the girl who had stood in that shadow, her head ringing, her world ending. I put my hand on the cold chain link fence. I took a deep breath, and I let it out. It was not a sigh of sadness. It was a release. It was the last, final, encrypted file, finally unlocked and deleted from my own system. As I stood there, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was an email. Subject: Keynote Speaker Invitation. It was from the National Logistics Safety Conference. They had heard about my work with the city. They wanted to know if I would be willing to give the keynote address. The topic: data integrity, transparency, and the human cost of a blind spot. I looked from the phone to the new, bright lights of the warehouse. A smile, a real one. It felt strange and new. I hit reply. I accepted. I put the phone in my pocket. I turned away from the lot, from the van, from the ghosts, and I walked out, into the full, bright, unforgiving sunlight, leaving the hollow, empty sound of that place far behind me. The story, finally, had its ending. Thank you all for listening to my story. Please, comment below and let me know where you're listening from. I'd love to connect and share our thoughts. Be sure to subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so this story can be heard by more people.